sure. Hi, my name is Craig Harrison and I'm an independent creative producer and artistic enabler based in Adelaide, Australia. I've been taking about the last year off, as most people have, and I've been doing some other creative activities, mainly building a house. But before that, I was the creative producer for 3 years and general manager for Gravity and Other Myths, which is a local circus company that has been touring the world for a few years. Previous to that, I worked as an independent producer. I was also a presenter for 10 years. So I've commissioned works, I've presented works, I've created works, and I've written works. But I started my creative journey as a lighting designer way back in university. So that's me in a very small nutshell. I just recently produced a work for young audiences, which is one of my passions. Circus is one of my passions, but also young audiences. Being a member of the board at IPAY based in Philadelphia, which, you know, obviously I haven't been there for a while, but what I love about work that is aimed at young people is that it has to be on point. It has to hit its mark every time, because children can smell a rat earlier than most adults. And so the attunement of the skill and the technology being implemented has to be right every time, because when you lose them, it's so much harder to get them back. Like with all audiences, I've got to say. So that work was called The Lost Balloon. We're still in development on that, and that is a full-face mask theatre work for young kids. Previous to that, I produced Out of Chaos for Gravity and Other Myths, and that was very much a combination of circus, physical theatre, technology, acrobatics, rigging, and also verite in a way. Like there was a lot of spoken word, a lot more than any other sort of circus show, or Gravity and Other Myths show anyway. And I think that for contemporary circus to work really well, it can't just be one thing or the other. It's always got to be a mix for it to be innovative. And, you know, one of the things that I was very proud of the company when I was with GOM was that Darcy Grant, the director, had this great knack of finding that beautiful space in between. Like we refer to it as kind of like the Holy Trinity. It's sort of like it's physical theatre, it's circus, and it's contemporary dance. And if you can find a place in that mix, somewhere in that triangle, then you're onto something truly innovative. And I think that that's probably why Australian circus has such an appetite around the world, because it really doesn't want to settle for what is traditionally coined the term circus. It always wants to push itself. And I think that every company in Australia owes that trajectory to Circa, based in Brisbane, and Euron Lifshitz, who is, you know, he definitely led the way, and he lost a lot of blood, and he, you know, he forged the path for all of these great companies, Gravity and Other Myths included, to follow. So I think that as long as you are always cognizant and understanding of where each of your components fit in the mix in order to get you to where you want to be on a sort of dramatic arc sense, then you will do it. You will do them each proud. And I think one of the processes that has given me success, and it's one of the things when I was a presenter as well, and you know, I helped develop like over 60 productions from the idea, like, you know, from the very small sort of cellular nugget of an idea. And I say, sounds good. But here's $5,000 in a studio. Come back in 3 weeks and let me know what you've discovered. And what I would say to them is how I approach my practice as well, is that you've always got to be able to answer two questions. Sounds simplistic, but it's served me well. And that is, what are you trying to say and who are you trying to say it to? And if you can answer with your hand on heart both those questions, then you're going to be okay, and you're going to make a show that has appeal. And if in your process you realize that one of those questions you're not quite sure what the answer is, turn around, take a few steps back, and figure out where you lost that, and then you start again. And so if you are always aware of who your audience is, and you're always aware of what you're trying to say, and you don't just deviate off the path, and because then you run the risk of something that I refer to as art wank, and you just end up just doing it for yourself. Stay in the bedroom. But you've always got to have those two questions frontal lobe. Look, I think I often strive to combine genres, art forms, practice, technology, and all that for a number of reasons. And that is, it's always to get the best out of the artists that you have in the room. And so if you cast someone, you will always find them that they've got other skills that you didn't know about. And you kind of pigeonholed them into, I've cast them for that. And I think that if you've got to be flexible. And I think that flexibility is what A, keeps me interested in doing it. B, keeps the artists engaged in the process. They've got to have skin in the game, as we refer to it. They've got to have an investment. But also it keeps the form fresh and alive and evolving and new and interesting, and it keeps the audience on the front of their seat as opposed to sitting back in their seat. What my attitude towards trying to mix as many things as possible is I'm always thinking of what the audience is going to want, but that's also a bit of a problem because you never know what they're going to want. And I think one of my dear colleagues from Hong Kong, you may know him, Kei Hong from Kowloon district. I saw him on a panel once, and he beautifully summated. He said, because someone got up and asked, what are you look like? What do people want to see in the world right now? And you could just see him glaze over. It's like, what sort of question is that? The world's pretty big. But he said, people make the most fucked up shit, but there's always an audience. And so, you've just got to always stay true to what you're trying to make. And the audience will find that authenticity in your work. And it might be a small group that you resonate with, and that group may grow, or it might be a big group, and then that group may shrink. You never know. But if you are authentic and you are taking risks, then the audience will repay you, in my opinion.
That's great.
I also love that. I'm very quotey at the moment. I love that quote from David Bowie, when he said that feeling when you're out in the ocean and your feet are like your buoyancy, and your feet is just there, and you feel like you just can't quite touch it. He said that is how I feel artistically. He says if I can have that feeling artistically, I know I'm on the right path. It is a big risk when you're making performing arts to put too much in the mix. Like with cooking. Oh, here's my analogies again. Like with cooking, you put too many ingredients in and it turns into a hot mess. I think that a lot of artists fall into the trap of saying, well, multimedia is kind of now, You know, I need to have video projection, and I need to have, you know, light interactivity, and I need to have all of these layers of technology. But they lose their way in that, and they forget about why they're on stage, and that's to tell a story. And so I've seen plenty of failures in the past, too many to mention. I can't actually think of one straight away because I've seen so many of them. And it's because, like what I said, they feel this obligation to show off artistry, that there is this trap of, I must prove myself, I must show off my artistry, and I need to show that I can do all of this. And in doing that, they've lost the reason why they're an artist in the first place. They're just, I don't know if it's ego, I don't know if it's just the technology is evolving too quickly for most people's brains. So, you know, how they can actually use that technology in a meaningful way that's the rub. You've got to be able to use it in a meaningful way. And if you don't, get rid of it, because it's not helping the story. And I think that an example of that is when we were making, which one was it? We were making Out of Chaos 2 years ago here in Adelaide. And we had all of this rigging system. We got like riggers in, we ordered all of this gear, and we were going to have this counterlever stuff of people going up and down and swinging across and lights and all of that. And in the end, we cut it all. And we just went, you know, it was Darcy, the director, just went, it just feels twee. It just doesn't feel like it's got anything to do with this work that we're making. It doesn't talk about the acrobats. It doesn't talk about the people that are inhabiting the space. It's just gimmickry. So we cut the lot, and then we then came back and just went, well, we've got these wireless lights, and we got these little magnets made up, and we basically just lashed them into these. It was the most over-engineered lighting rig you've ever seen, because these Dyneema ropes could hold 2 tons, and they had a 300-gram light on it. And it was perfect. It was perfect. It was just like, you know, that's just like, it's the perfect example of where it can go wrong but turned right. Because, you know, that show won a Helpman Award, which is, you know, Australia's top theatre award. The most important consideration when working with other artists, no matter what art form or genre or skill, is always give them a voice, and always find an opportunity for them to be part of the decision. Now that could be something as simple as they want to do the warm-up at the start of the day, but that gives them the skin in the game that I referred to before. Some people may want a lot more creative input, and that can get tricky, especially if you've got a director, because they've got the vision, and it's their name that everyone looks at and goes, geez, that failed. So the director always has to navigate that with the people on the floor. But as a producer, you know, it's my role to make sure that everyone and everything and every component is in the one place at the right time, and that it works, and that no one's waiting, and that there's always an opportunity for people to try something, fail, move on. And that's the giving people the opportunity to fail in a really nurturing environment. That's artistry. And that's what gives people the motivation to move forward and to push an art form and to push an idea, is if they can fail, but fail fast, and then move on and come up with a better solution. That's innovation. And you know, whether it's performing arts or bloody making staplers, I don't care. It's a pretty rudimentary sort of process, but a lot of people forget that. And well, a lot of people either over budget or over time, over schedule that's not allowed to happen anymore, and that failure is looked as failure, and that is like, you're going to end up with a shit show at the end of that, because everyone's going to fail. Because if you're not taking risks and you're not failing, then you're not doing it right, in my opinion. Everyone has a different experience in 2020, and everyone had a different mode of dealing with the new world. You know, I was on a plane every other week, and then I was not. Now, you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to be that mobile in order to activate the networks and do the work I needed to do. So, you know, my response to that, if I couldn't be with people face to face, if I couldn't do that, there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. Like when I was with Gravity and Other Myths, so this is pre-pandemic. This was actually, because the company was so busy and touring all the time, we couldn't actually get in the room together and create a work. There was just no room. They were warming up and they could work on tricks and whatnot, but there was no real thing. No gaps of time. So Darcy Grant and I, we came up with remote creation, which was a regular set of meeting times on Zoom. This was before Zoom was a thing. It's funny, I've been using Zoom for 8 years, but it's so good now that everyone, I don't have to coach people through how to use Zoom. That used to take up half my time. So we would regularly meet. There would be a production meeting on Zoom, and we would have a series of portfolios about show creation. And we would assign that portfolio to one of the actors in the show, or an acrobat, or a lighting guy, or me, a producer. I was assigned a portfolio. And it was up to that person to interrogate what was needed, how we could achieve its goals, and then we'd all discuss it, come up with a couple of actions for each of the portfolios, and then we had a week to do it. And then we came back and reported back. And it was highly efficient, and it worked really well. And the only bit that was different is that the acrobats were still together and they were still touching each other and performing. So that model, or that framework, I think could still work, but obviously in a physical theatre setting, it would be a bit more challenging, because you couldn't try the trick, fail at the trick, try a new trick, report back. So.